we are going to go ahead and get into it. I want to make sure for those who have not seen the master plan last year, our first real transparent conversation, that people get to hear from you, James, about why we decided to do that. Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, we did that last year. That was June of last year, just to say, almost like a why not? Why not show people what we're doing? We do think that financial advice, when done right, is incredibly powerful, can lead to lots of good, but there's just challenges for that advice to be done right a lot of ways. And so um, we felt like at a certain point, like, well, we maybe have potential to do things differently, or we may have potential to make a little bit of an impact or a big impact in the way that we think financial planning and financial advice should be delivered. And so we said, why don't we share that with the world, whoever wants to attend? No idea if nobody would attend, if 100 people would attend, if however many. But I think that's been viewed 16,000 plus times so far, showing us that, okay, there is a real interest in just pulling back the curtain, saying, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing what we're doing. And we didn't want to just make a big promise and say, this is what we're trying to do, and then go dark or go quiet. We felt like it would be a cool thing to do, that once a year, let's give an update. What were the promises that we made in terms of where we want to go, what we want to do, and how have we done? What have we accomplished? What challenges do we face? What are the new things that we think we want to do over the next 12 to 24 months? So excited to jump in today and go over all that.
I am as well. And for those who are unaware, James is the founder of Root. I am the chief growth officer and moderator for today. So we have a Q&A section for those of you who have questions that you would like us to address. Go ahead and put those in the Q&A section that you should see in Zoom, and I will be the one looking at those. So with that being said, James, I will kick it to you.
Thank you, Ari. I'll go ahead and jump in. So this is our State of the Union. We intend to do this once a year. And this is only if people continue to find this interesting and like it. But I think that it's fun for us to, in some ways, have a big level of accountability. And I'm just going to kind of put up our disclosure side as we do this. Of Root doesn't have outside investors. We're not a publicly traded company. We don't have any private equity money or venture money. And the reason that matters is when you do, you have to kind of give regular reports on how are we doing. And typically those reports are all completely growth related, finance related, profitability related, of how are we doing on our financial goals, because our investors want to know what's the return they're getting on their money. But because we don't have investors, our only stakeholders are our clients, both current and future clients, and our team. And so everything that we're doing is through the lens of how can we better serve our team, better serve our clients. And this is a big part of us showing how we want to do that. You mentioned the Starfish, Ari, and we had our big team retreat back in February. And to kick that presentation off, or kick off one of the presentations we did at the team retreat, I shared a story that I felt really encapsulated where Root is today. There's a story of this little girl who goes walking on a beach early in the morning, and the night before there was a horrible storm. And that storm washed up tens of thousands of starfish. So as far as you could see across the beach, it was just starfish after starfish after starfish. And this little girl sees that and she says, look at all these starfish. I see that the tide is receding. I see that the sun is coming up. If nothing happens, all of these starfish are going to die. So she starts walking along the beach and she picks one up and throws it back in the ocean. She picks another up and she throws it back in the ocean. And she keeps doing this until a gentleman comes over to her and says, hey, this is cute little girl, but look at all these tens of thousands of starfish. There is no way you can possibly make a difference with what you're doing. And the little girl pauses and she sits and she thinks about it for a second, but then she leans over again, picks up a starfish, throws it back in and said, maybe I can't make a difference for all of them, but for that one starfish, it made all the difference. And that's a feel-good story. We all feel good hearing that, how cute, but what on earth does that have to do with Root? Well, if you look at just America, there are 10,000 people retiring every single day. And these aren't people that are going to die if Root Financial doesn't throw them back into the water, of course. But in many cases, what we see so often is people don't really fully live if there's not a really great financial planner that's helping to guide them through some of those pivotal life decisions in retirement. And that's where I feel Root is. And I'm going to share some data and some stats on this in just a second, but there are so many people reaching out to work with Root. And we don't say that in a way to brag or to say, look at us, as much as we feel like there's a beach full of starfish here, and we can only throw back a couple at a time or three at a time. We only help so many people at a time. And a big part of what I'm going to show over the course of this presentation is this is the why that's driving it. There are all these people, wonderful people that we want to be able to serve and work with, but these are the challenges that we're facing. And these are just comments. Ari, if you remember back in, I think, February, January, right before we did this presentation, I said, can you just like in 5 minutes send me, I don't know, messages you get from people saying, hey, we really want to work with you, but we're not at your minimum yet. We can't quite reach it yet. And so the names have been redacted. I've just chosen 3, but these are messages you and I are getting pretty consistently. We're not quite at your minimum yet, but we love what you're doing. We're just essentially expressing like we really want to be able to work with you. This person saying, hey, go get an army of people to help root support more folks. Let's go. Like, come on, get more advisors. We really want to work with you. This individual reaching out saying, hey, I've engaged with this redacted firm as I don't yet have the required minimum to engage root service in the platform, has not been able to sync. So we get so many wonderful people reaching out to us everywhere from a few $1,000s in their portfolio to many tens of millions of dollars in their portfolio. And we just had this challenge of we have not been able to serve everyone. And just to quantify that further, that in the last couple plus years, over 60,000 people have at least started going through the process on our website of saying, I want to work with an advisor at Root. And the overwhelming majority of these, of course, we have not been able to serve. We have not been able to support. And a big part of that is we want to grow. We want to have impact. We want to help all these people, but we have a very clear growth philosophy. And that growth philosophy is growth isn't the first thing that we're prioritizing. There's 2 guardrails when we think about our growth. And one is serve clients. What does that feel like? What does that look like? The way I think about that is I want every client of Root, whether we have 100 clients, 1,000 clients, 100,000 clients, I want every client to feel like they're one of a dozen or a couple dozen people that Root works with because of how proactive, how intentional, how in tune to their needs their advisor is. They just can't comprehend how could this possibly be done for more than a couple dozen people. So that's a feeling we want people to have. And then we also have data around that of like, what are the client satisfaction scores we want to hit? What are the net promoter scores we want to hit? What are the other indicators that we are delivering on that? The second guardrail is serve ourselves. And what I mean by serve ourselves, not in a self-serving, selfish kind of way, but I want everyone at Root to wake up on the balls of their feet every morning, feeling like this is the best job in the world. I cannot believe I get to do this with the team I get to do it with, for the clients I get to do it with. How exciting is it that I get to do this every day? I know I jump out of bed every day feeling that way. And the goal is to say, how can we create something that, yes, we want to prioritize growth, but only if we're not sacrificing either of these non-negotiables, either of these guardrails. Then from there, we want to grow as much as we can because that leads to more impact, more opportunity, more potential, most importantly, more transformation of people who we truly believe we're not just managing their portfolio, we're helping them create better outcomes for their lives as a whole. So before we go on, if it's not already clear already, there's not going to be anything learned today in terms of tax planning, investment planning. And this is purely the peek behind the scenes of why are we doing some of the things that we're doing and how does that impact our clients, future clients, team, and really industry as a whole. But this is that philosophy that shapes a lot of what we do. And just taking this back to where were we a year ago even, when we did the master plan, the Ari reference, that was in June of 2024, so a little bit more than a year ago. But if I just look back 12 months, where we were, we had 22 people here on the team. We had about 450 clients that we were serving. And our investment minimum, and the reason we even have an investment minimum is just candidly, that's the easiest way to control inbound lead flow. There are times and there's a lot of people reaching out, which we're incredibly grateful for. We just don't have the bandwidth to be able to properly serve everyone that reaches out. And even if I go back to this, our absolutes for growth, like it would be very easy to say we could go raise a whole bunch of money. We could go get private equity money. We could go get whatever money, and we could hire 30, 40, 50 advisors, and we could fully take on all the clients that are coming our way from the marketing channels, the educational channels that we have. But that would violate these growth principles that we have. There's no way we could possibly serve clients the way we want to serve them if we did that. There's no way the team culture and the structures that we have would be able to support that. So as we look at this minimum was our way of controlling that inbound lead flow of saying, yes, we want to keep growing and serving more people, but that's how we control for the bandwidth constraints that we just naturally have as a team of 22. Our focus at that time was in large part our people, and still is our people. So as a service provider, our product is our people. People aren't buying a t-shirt or a widget or even a piece of software from us. They are buying a person. So how can we best serve our clients? Best develop our product. And again, our product is you, it's me, it's our people. And so Root University was a big initiative that we took on last year. As we grow, we didn't want to just be a collection of really talented advisors that all have a different approach and philosophy in tools that they use and message that they prioritize. We really wanted to create this structure that there is a uniqueness and there's a consistency of that process, regardless of what advisor is going through it with you, it's taking you through. Now, we have incredibly high standards for the advisors that come to Root. So each of them, we already know, is incredibly talented. And each of them is going to have their own unique personality and life experiences. And that we absolutely want to be unique and personal to them. But there's a consistency of the types of meetings that we run, the way we do planning, that was really important to us to dial in. And we made a ton of progress last year and continue to do so with Root University, which is our internal way of doing that. How do people and culture? Again, our people are our products. This isn't just saying, oh, look how fun it is at Root, but really making it fun, making it engaging, having the right people on the team, having that culture that both expects excellence, but also is done with a whole bunch of really humble, really hungry people that are supportive and really drive each other to do better. How do we develop what at the time was a role and now is really a full department, fully dedicated to that, to attracting and retaining the best people in the industry so that as we grow, the worst thing I see for a lot of firms, a lot of financial firms out there is, and this typically happens when there is a merger or there is maybe a big outside investment, all of a sudden, so much is cut out of the firm. And all of a sudden, the culture just tanks. And all of a sudden, all these things happen. And it creates a horrible experience. So what we're doing is we said, how can we create this role? And like I said, now department, where this is being used to prioritize the team, the people, which is, of course, the product. So we did that last year. And then finally, new team development, new team structure. This is kind of just to reiterate what I just said. It's not just a whole bunch of, we got 20 advisors or 30 advisors or 40 advisors, all kind of on their own island doing what they want. There is a structure to this so that we can have consistent support, consistent experience, consistent development across the board. And I'll show exactly what that looks like in just a second. But where are we? So that's where we were. Today, a year later, team members went from 22 to 55. Clients served went from 450 and change to 725. And this is one of the things I'll say we're most proud about is we've been able to reduce that minimum to $1 million, the investment minimum for us to be able to work with the client on an ongoing basis. So going back to the why at the very beginning, this isn't just to say, we want to keep growing and look at this and we're going to grow revenues and we're going to grow team because that's what we're after. We are after our mission of helping all these incredible people that resonate with the message that we're putting out there, but we just didn't have the bandwidth to do so. So the team growing, and the team growing in a very intentional way, very steady way. I know it doesn't seem like growing in size pretty quickly, but doing so in a way where we could support more people and do it in the way that we feel proud to say we're able to do this. So this is a snapshot today. And where are we today? Kind of, these are just a couple of quotes I think really encapsulate where we are. Growth without order leads to collapse. That's a quote from Ray Dalio's Principles book. Ben Horowitz, in a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, says a company growing faster than its infrastructure can handle will always trip over itself. So I think the biggest thing, where are we today, is we've grown quickly and we feel like things are going really well, surprisingly well in a lot of ways. That feels good. It feels like there's structure, but also we need to make sure that every time we grow, our foundation is being strengthened. Every time we grow, things are becoming more orderly, not starting to dilute that foundation or to dilute that experience in any way. And one of the ways that we do this is going into this new year and talking to the team, the focus for growth this year was this concept of inward, outward, upward. And what we mean by that is, number one, we need to focus, and going back to that quote, you can't scale chaos. If there's not order, if there's not the right foundation at the beginning, growth too quickly is going to seem exciting in the moment, but it's going to start to collapse that foundation. And the long-term impacts are not going to be good. So how can we focus on refining our internal systems, developing the skills needed to serve our clients to the highest degree, fostering that culture that attracts the best people, retains the best people, creates this culture of collaboration? How do we start there? That's really team-focused, people-focused. From there, that allows us to continue growing the outward component, which is the client part of our growth, of how do we continue to deliver more and more in terms of the experience that we're able to deliver, the consistency of meetings, the proactivity of the touch points, the effectiveness of the follow-through, making sure that what we are doing continues to grow and improve as Root grows, which unfortunately is not always the case with a lot of firms. You see this all the time. Growth is attractive and they want to grow it and grow at all costs. And then as you do that, it starts to dilute the services. It starts to dilute the experience that clients or customers receive. And to us, that would just sacrifice the growth principles that we just talked about. And we are making very close or paying very close attention to ensure that does not happen. And then finally is the upward growth. If we focus on inward, if we focus on outward, so focus on the team, focus on our services and the clients, the way we're able to grow those services, the upward, in many cases, is going to take care of itself. How does that lead to growth of what we are doing, which is top line revenue growth, all those things, so that we can turn right back around and reinvest into the inward component, the team component, which then allows us to improve our services and reinvest there. And it becomes a virtuous cycle, but it has to be prioritized in the right order. And that's been a big part of what we've been doing this year. We knew that a part of that was we needed to strengthen our purpose, vision, mission, and values. Every firm has a mission statement, but most of the time that was an exercise they did in 30 to 60 minutes because their web designer said, we need to put something on the website. So can you scratch something down? Our process to go through this was a very, very thorough, like, what do we actually stand for? Why do we actually exist? Why is it that we do what we do? And I want to share that with everything, but that was something that was at the beginning of this year. This MVP, the mission, vision, purpose, really becomes a guide to shape all the major and even minor decisions that we make as a firm. So first, our purpose is, how can we be the go-to place where clients and team members seek to become the better version of themselves? Now, this sounds like a little, okay, what are you guys, your financial advisors, what are you talking about? Well, I said, if people are just looking for someone to manage a portfolio, there's a million advisors that could do that for you. Maybe you don't even need an advisor to do that for you. But if people are looking for a guide to help them really make the right life decisions and optimize everything their money can actually do for them, to be the best version of themselves, to have the best version of their life, their retirement, the things that they get to do using their finances as a tool, we want to be that. That's the role that we want to play for our clients, and we want to do that for our team. How do we turn that mission inward to say, if we're going to talk about doing that for clients, how can we also walk the talk and do what we're talking about for our team as well, so that we can live that out, so that we can be part of that journey with our clients, albeit in our own lives in a lot of ways. Vision is, how can we build a globally recognized platform where every single person in the world can have access to the financial tools and guidance they need to live with confidence. This doesn't mean we're going to work with every single person in the world one-on-one. That's just not something we have any desire to do, but it does mean we want to work one-on-one with as many people as we can. And then we want to use other platforms, whether that's YouTube, whether that's podcasts, whether that's digital media, whether it's courses. What are the other things that we can do to reach the people that we can't serve one-on-one today, but we still want to be able to give them the tools and the guidance they need to live with confidence and do the things that they want to do. And then finally, our mission is to give our team and our clients the processes, the people, and the purpose they need to make the most out of their life with their money. I think this last piece is the big one. Money is not everything. Getting more money isn't just the end goal. It's, how can we use this money to get more life? And how do we embed that message in everything that we do, that the sign of a good financial plan is a life well lived? And how do we embed that in all the planning work we do, all the stuff we do internally, externally, et cetera. And then finally, our value. We had 3 values last year. We said, if we boil it down to one thing, there's one single value that we have in its service. And every single financial advisor in the world is going to say what separates them is service. And so we say we can't stop by just saying, this is our value and end it there. What's the expression of that? What's the way that we do that? And how do we, as a team on a weekly basis, celebrate the ways in which we've been able to do this? So serve yourself, serve your team, serve your clients, serve your family, serve your community. Every Monday morning in our team meeting, we start with this mission, vision, purpose, core values, and then we go on to highlight really cool ways in which this was done. And serve yourself. This is not, again, not in a self-serving way, but how can I be the best? How can I take care of myself, whether that's health, whether that's nutrition, prioritizing relationships, whatever it is, so that I can be the best teammate, so that I can be the best advisor, so that I can be the best I can be for my family, so that I can be the best I can be for my community. And it's really cool. Now have a team of 55 people and getting to see the incredible ways that's being implemented between themselves, to their community, and everything in between. So back to team structures, just a kind of a couple of quick things. Then, as Ari mentioned at the beginning, we're going to open it up for Q&A here. But as we think about team, there's so much intent, things that maybe don't seem like they matter, but are critical to the ability to do what we want to do long-term is this foundation and the team structure and who's supporting who and how do we ensure that advisors can be fully freed up to advise. And with that, we have 4 internal advisory teams. And those teams are Oak, Canopy, Banyan, Aspen. No differences in terms of the advisors, obviously different advisors on different teams, but not necessarily differences in terms of the services provided as much as needing to ensure that each team actually kind of looks like this. So this is a team at Root. Each team has a senior advisor, and that senior advisor is kind of like the player coach. They have their own clients, but they also have leadership responsibilities, management responsibilities, development responsibilities to make sure that each lead advisor, the lead advisor is the advisor actually working with clients for the most part, is fully supported, fully equipped, fully able to give their full attention, their full energy, their full time to their clients and the planning work that they're doing. Each lead advisor is supported by an associate advisor. So if this is a team, this is a pod. So for clients watching, most of your interactions are probably with your pod, your lead advisor, and probably their associate advisor as well. Within that pod, this is a squad, and the squad is also incorporating the client service associate. And that client service associate is typically doing behind the scenes things and not behind the scenes things, helping to open accounts, helping to facilitate transfers, helping to make sure that things on the back end are handled properly. And so with this structure, this allows our advisors are really why we exist, to fully focus on doing what they do best, which is serving clients, knowing their clients, guiding their clients. And beyond just the standard team structure, there's a leadership team to support that. The goal going into this year is how do we get people focused on exactly what they should be doing based upon their skill sets, their desires, their natural talents. And the leadership team to support all this is in our, this is you, the growth, the sales side. We don't want advisors, we talked about this last year, a lot of advisors in the industry, they might be spending 30, 40+% of their week just trying to develop new business, trying to find new clients. If you're an advisor at Root, we want you to be fully present and fully focused on being a financial advisor, removing the sales expectation, the need to go find new clients to work with. We have a department that fully focuses on the client operations, the internal development. So career pathing, key initiatives, team alignment, people and culture. We talked about that. How do we establish this thing that kind of becomes a gravitational pull that keeps the team together, that keeps things exciting, that attracts the right people here to the team? Advisor experience. So coaching, oversight, how can we ensure advisor success, or how can we do everything we can do to increase the probability as much as possible of our advisors being the best they possibly can be? And then finally, even financial planning. And this includes a head of investments, a head of planning, kind of a head of coaching role, where advisors, the goal is to say, how can we bring all the pieces around them to support them so they can be the best they can be for you as the client, and having this team surrounding them. So where are we going? So just a few thoughts. I'm sure there's going to be some questions about this. So I'll give a high level overview, and then we can, if there's any Q&A, we can address it further there. But first, lowered minimums. as I mentioned, this was one of the things we were most excited to be able to roll out this year. We had so many of those messages that I shared towards the beginning of the presentation of, we can't wait to work with you guys. Here's our portfolio value. We know you have minimum, we get it, but we cannot wait for you to lower your minimum so we can make that happen sooner. That's something that ate at us. Like, we got so many messages from so many of you that follow us, interact with us, have been watching the content we put out for months and even years in some cases. It was a huge priority for us to be able to drive down that minimum. And we did so through these team structures, through team development, through growing the team, and did so in a way where, like I said, we truly felt like Root got better. Every time a new team member came on, we were getting stronger and stronger and stronger because of the quality of the new people coming to Root. So we're able to lower minimums while also continuing to grow the standard of excellence that we expect from the team, which is something that was awesome. And we want to keep doing that. Now, I don't know the timing of exactly when we'll be able to do that, but the desire is not to say, okay, check the box, we reduce the minimum to $1 million of investable assets. The goal is to keep doing this over time to reach that mission that we talked about, to being able to reach anyone, regardless of asset level, income level, and do so in a way that we'd be proud of. Not just growing quickly to do this, but diluting the service, but doing so in a way where we feel like we can stand behind the services offered, regardless of asset level. Along those lines, I mentioned that we both have people that are coming to us with less in their portfolio than the current minimum. We also have a lot of people coming to us with a few tens of millions in their portfolio or in their business or in whatever it is. And we said, okay, we have a really, really strong core model here. And we also have increased capacities and abilities as we continue to grow the team to create more of this private wealth division. And this is something we're starting to roll out internally, and we're kind of finalizing some of the pieces, but there will be more of an external rollout coming soon. But for that investor, that individual that does have more of the 8+ figure portfolio balance net worth, there's just different planning points. There's different complexities. There's different things needed. And we've done a lot to build out the team internally to serve that and support that. And there's some things that we're continuing to do, but that is something that's coming. I want to say it's coming soon. From one standpoint, like it's here today, we have it, but there's a few pieces that for us to say, yeah, we do this really well, we want to be able to fully stand behind that. And there's a few key pieces we're just in the process of wrapping up and really excited to be able to release externally before too long. AI strategy. So one of the biggest things that's changed between our master plan 14 months ago and today is not AI. AI was there, but just the adoption of it, the effectiveness of it, how much it's actually changed and grown and developed. And one of the things I think is a unique opportunity for Root with AI is I think a lot of the industry, I can't prove this, but it feels like a lot of the industry is looking at AI as, oh, cool, this is going to allow me to replace my associate advisor. This will allow me to replace my client service associate. This will allow me to replace people. And so I can just kind of increase profits, and AI is going to help me do that because it can do it cheaper than a human. And that's fine. That's fine in some ways. Like, that's a model that works. It's definitely a business strategy. But for us, we view this as an awesome opportunity to say, when the rest of the industry is doing that, how can we double down in terms of our talent development? And how can we double down in terms of our ability to develop the right people, the best people? Because we need to have the best people to do the things that we want to do. And that doesn't mean AI is not part of it. AI is going to be a big part of it. When we talk about human first financial planning, what that means is people want a human to guide them. People want that relationship. People want someone that has knowledge of them and what's important to them and the things that are very, very difficult to quantify. And humans do that so well, specifically humans that are really, really good at financial planning piece and also have just a mastery of the ability to communicate well, the ability to relate well, the ability to empathize and care and actually be deeply committed to someone's success. What AI does, though, is there are a lot of things that advisors, and this isn't unique to the advisory industry, this is every industry, there are many things that could be done better by software, by technology, by AI. So those are the things we want to identify. What are the things that I, as an individual, am not providing value by doing? Think of spreadsheet stuff. Think of basic analysis stuff. Think of just optimizing some of the things that aren't necessarily client facing. The more we can do that, the more we can be in front of our clients, the better we can serve our clients, the more we can start to introduce new things that AI can help to do with them. So I know that's very general and very broad. I'm sure there's going to be some questions on that, but we're actually looking at this as a really amazing thing to say, how can this make us as humans better? Because some of the things that still need to be done by humans, but could be done better by software, by the right technology, that will free us up to do so. And then the final thing is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I shared it on a few slides ago. We're at 55 team members today. 1 year ago, we were at 22. 2 years ago, we were at 7. So there has been a lot of growth, and that growth has been very controlled, and I feel very good about that growth. But it's also the point where we say, okay, let's take a step back. We don't need to keep growing that fast. We don't need to keep doing that if it's going to start to mean anything starts to deteriorate in the level of service or culture or experience team members or clients face. So for us, it's very much how do we move forward smoothly? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. We want to keep doing what we do. We love what we get to do, but making sure that we're doing it in a very responsible way, because the responsibility that we have to our clients is too high and too great to prioritize anything other than a wonderful client experience and being the best we can be. And this is kind of messages to team through the remainder of the year and beyond. This is the kind of mindset that we have as we go through this, as we keep building on what we're doing. So that is a very high level overview. Ari, what questions, if any, are coming in as we have gone through that?
Thank you very much, James. That was great. I'll let you get a sip of water because I know that was a lot. I will say before we go to the questions, I didn't see one photo of anyone playing soccer in that presentation. So we can talk to marketing about that later. But in all seriousness, there are 21 comments and questions that are coming in, but there were a few questions submitted ahead of time. James, is there anything you would like to address that you've seen come in before we go to the question bank here?
No, I am just looking at them for the first time. Some of these, I'm just seeing the shared. So go ahead and ask whatever you would like.
Beautiful. I'll let you scan through that, but there are some fun comments coming through from new clients who are saying, fun to see this day one client. So great to see you, Rich. And it's cool because we have a wide range of people here. We have people who want to work at Root. We have team members at Root. We have clients. We have potential clients. So thank you all for being here. Greg Moore asked the following question. Can you talk a little bit about this new Vise portfolio platform? How will it add value from both the client and advisor perspective? And will there be a client-facing interface? Any comments there?
Yes, that was specific to Vise. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, I'd be happy to address that. That's actually, I see Jerry asked a similar question. Is that given the notorious I'm going to read Jerry's because I think they're both one and the same. It's just at the top of the list. Jerry says, given the notorious functional lapses that have been seen during the current period of AI hype, how can we put faith in the Vise system? And are there any safeguards regarding Root's use of the platform? So for those that don't know, Vise is as a portfolio management tool. It's not making the recommendations. It's not saying, hey, Ari, based upon this algorithm that I have, I'm going to put you in this portfolio. It is very much the implementation of me as Ari's advisor, knowing Ari, knowing his goals, knowing what he needs, knowing the right mix of stocks, bonds, whatever asset classes. I determine that as Ari's advisors. All of our advisors determine that as advisors to their client. This is the single best, maybe one of the top 2 or 3 things I can think of what can software, what can technology do better than a human that I haven't seen done in a way that I felt comfortable with until recently. And this is not like an endorsement or, but they are, so we beta tested that and we're so impressed because think of it this way. Ari, if all of your money's in a traditional IRA and you have $500,000 there and you own some stuff, I think, hey, that's not really good investments. Here's investments I think are better. That's pretty easy to manage. I can just sell everything that you have if needed and buy all of what I recommend if needed. Or if some of the stuff you have is really good, we can keep it and the other stuff, transition out of it. That part's pretty easy. But when someone has typically north of $2-3 million, it's usually not all in an IRA, which means there starts to be some pretty significant tax consequences to any transitions that you make. You might come to me saying, hey, I work at NVIDIA and I have $25 million in NVIDIA stock. And also I work at Apple previously or Tesla previously and got this. And also I've been investing all along. It's a big portfolio, but in many ways, it might be a very messy portfolio. You're super concentrated. You have a lot of unrealized gains in your portfolio. We don't necessarily just want to trigger taxes on all of them. The process to take that, maybe this portfolio that you've accumulated over the past 10 years, and say, okay, which of these investments do we need to keep? Which do we need to sell? And by the way, it's not just which investments do we need to sell, it's at what lot level. You may have been making purchases on a regular frequency and you have, $1 million in this position, but over 49 different purchases, each one with a different cost basis, each one with a different unrealized gain, each one with some nuances there. And so it's spreadsheets and spreadsheets and spreadsheets. So what's the most effective way to take what you have to get in the right portfolio to minimize tracking error, to minimize deviation from the portfolio that we want, but also be super mindful of taxes. And that process is so manually intensive. And by the time it's all done and we take it to the client and we look at it, sometimes the markets move so much, it's like, well, got to do it again. What Vise does and what their solution does is it says that whole thing, this is the perfect use case. AI is in the name, and there are some AI capabilities, but this isn't AI, what I'm talking about. This is just really, really good software that does this core nuts and bolts kind of programming what they've done. How can that process identify, saying, here's the current portfolio, here's the target portfolio, what's the right mix of buys and sells to minimize tracking error while not exceeding the gain? Anyways, the software they have that does that is really great, really strong. The AI piece of it, I get like, yeah, AI hype. We're not putting anyone's portfolio, anyone's plan all in the hands of AI. It is way too early to do that, if ever. So this is not an AI thing. This is just a software thing. And how do we safeguard that? Yeah, there's still human oversight of every last thing that's being done here. Human oversight of trades, human oversight of actually designing the recommendation and following through on its implementation. So I'm looking at Jerry's question, Ari, and I think I addressed that one, but if there's anything else in the other question that wasn't addressed there, let me know.
That was great. And I'm seeing lots of questions come in. We will do our best to address them. If we do not get to your question, you can be just mad at me. So this is a great question from Susanna, who says, hi guys, Susanna from Canada here. You touched on Root University. What does training your team entail? And what does growth look like for a team member at Root at a CSA, lead advisor, senior advisor level?
Yeah, so we have, there's a couple programs. One of the things as we've grown, it's been really cool because we have so many insanely talented people on the team. And seeing everyone come together to say, hey, here's the things we need, here's the standards we need, here's the kind of inadequacies of what we currently have if we want to hold ourselves out as having the gold standard of financial advice in this industry. Everything from, someone's a client service associate, there's a greenhouse program that Paul rolled out and Jeff rolled out, saying, how do we ensure there's some basic, that's just the kind of the title of the program, but before Root University, how do we ensure there's like the foundations, the basics, the things that need to be known to move to that associate financial advisor level 1? How can we teach and train and coach on those? Then, and before I go on, do you mind repeating that question just so I don't start going off on a tangent, as I'm sometimes apt to do? I want to make sure I address it specifically.
You touched on Root University. What does training your team entail? And what does growth look like for a team member at Root at a CSA, lead advisor, and senior advisor level?
Yeah, it's, Carly actually sent me a screenshot. I'm just remembering this now. I said, hey, can you shoot me a screenshot of like what it looks like in Root University? I'm going to see if I can pull this up real quick. I can just even share a high level overview of that, because the level of standards and the things that we're looking at, and this may or may not fully show. Carly, if you're watching, do you mind re-slacking that to me? I'm looking at our Slack message, and I think it might have been okay, here it is. I'm going to pull this up right now just to show. This isn't going to answer everything, but like, for example, different meeting types. How do we train on that? Completion of training, like what are the types of training, different milestones, the meeting prep checkpoints, all these different things that essentially say, what are the skills, whether it's investment training, insurance training, income planning, whether it's how to run a meeting, how to follow up, how to use different softwares. How do we break each of those components down, and what are all the subcomponents of those needed to be an effective advisor? And the really cool thing about this, like, is this is always growing. This is a thing that as we go through it, we're constantly getting feedback from associates going through it, saying, how can we improve it? How can we build upon it? And it's a very cool thing now that, like, when someone goes through all that and they've shadowed a certain number of meetings and they've been in that role for a certain period of time, the final part of actually becoming an advisor is they go through a mock Sequoia exam. So Sequoia system is our process of, if we're going to bring on a new client, there's a very structured process we go through with that. It starts with the kickoff meeting where we kind of explore your purpose, the things you want to do, et cetera. Then there's an incoming cash flow meeting, then an investment meeting, then a tax meeting, then a security meeting. And we don't just say, okay, cool, it feels like you're ready to go. We take people through mock exams and give very, very specific feedback. And there has to be a passing grade on all of those as like the capstone, the final thing to complete before going through there. So there's so many details. It's hard to distill it down to just one thing or two things, but it's that overall, what don't we have training on and how can we create training on it? And it's been a 1.5 year plus process, and it's still, and it will always be or continue to be built out.
There are multiple questions coming in from clients, and I want you all to know, if we do not get to your specific question, we will be emailing you within 24 hours regarding your question. So if it does not get addressed, that is why. So Bo, Howard, Mark, thank you guys. This is a question that I remember we got last year, James. This is from Mark, and Mark says, aloha, Ari and James. That's it. That's the only reason. I just came back from Hawaii, so that's why we picked that question. No. Mark says, any plans for in-house comprehensive tax planning and filing?
Yes, is the short answer. And there's a longer answer. Tax prep and financial advice just makes so much sense to go together. You're talking about so many of the same things. Like, why not just do both? The reason we're not just doing both is it is a completely different business. And as much as we're focused on what we're doing right now, if we completely tried to build another business side by side with that to serve our clients at the level we would want them to be served, it would be a challenge. It would probably lead to letting people down along the way. There would be some challenges with that. So more than likely what's going to happen is, we've been in this process for a long time of exploring partnerships with other firms that do tax prep specifically for firms like Root, or specifically for RIAs, where they say, let us kind of be your partner that you tag along. We integrate the planning piece. We integrate so much of what we do, but there's actually a separate filing piece. And I'm talking aloud right here. Like, this is not set in stone. This is not definitive. This is something that's a moving target in some ways, and something that will continue to evolve. But that is one of the biggest things we want to be able to do. We've explored some options. There's even been a couple we were close with. We just felt like if we rolled this out to our clients, we wouldn't feel good about it. And if we don't feel good about it, if we don't feel like this is elevating the level of service, we don't want to just add tax prep just for the sake of adding it if it deteriorates the experience at all. But it is absolutely something we want to be able to do. I don't think, at least in the near term, Root will have a Root tax, for example, and it'll be a Root-owned entity, as much as there's some really seemingly wonderful partner firms that do really strong work and could support the level of work we'd need that we are talking with. And there would be a form of integration between those two.
Love it. There are 2 resources I want to call out while, James, I let you drink some water and scan the questions coming in. And the first resource is the Root Ready podcast. Now, this is specifically if you want to be the best advisor in the world. This is hosted by James, but I'm mentioning this now because many of you will ask questions about how we develop our advisors. And it's something that I think actually a lot of you clients might actually enjoy tuning into based off what is being asked. So we will send a link to that after the recording today. And then our Root Financial YouTube channel has lots of answers to your questions that I'm seeing, such as, how will my experience differ depending on the advisor I work with? How many team members come with one particular client? So we will link to these resources after we finish today, and want to make sure you're all aware of that. So the Root Ready.
Can I jump in and answer a couple of these?
Please.
All right.
Yeah.
We mentioned that we want this to be very transparent. So I see some of these questions coming in that are awesome. This is anonymous, but someone says, great job on growing the team. What has been your attrition rate in the last 12 months? I'll extend that even to the beginning of we've only ever had one team member who's left, who has resigned. The cool thing is that team member is now an account executive at a kind of a partner, but a vendor that we use very closely. So we still get to stay in touch with him. But we've only had one person leave Root, which we feel is great. That if there's constant turnover, yeah, we're at 55, but it took us 100 hires to get there. Time to slow way down because we're just churning through people, and that's a horrible client experience. That ties into Howard. Howard, thank you for this question. He says, I've been with Root for a while now. It seems like every time I reach out to my advisor, there's other staff members that I'm working with. I'm a little confused about who these new people are and what they do. Is that the personal touch that I became accustomed to is slipping? How can we reverse this? Great question. What that is, and this kind of goes back to our associate advisor development, Howard, is those are not new, those are new associate advisors. So part of our promotion track, how we want people to develop into lead advisors, some people we hire them directly into the lead advisor role. There's a pretty rigorous process that we go through. We hire very few people that apply to that role because there has to be darn near perfect alignment with their skill set and philosophy and approach as there is here for them to step in and start advising clients right away. So for the most part, we like to hire people at the associate level. While they're at the associate level, they can go through Root University, they can shadow a whole bunch of meetings, they can see how meetings are run, they can build out a lot of the plan, like they can support the advisor while learning very organically how we do things at Root, and then they become lead advisors. One of the challenges or the issues I would say we faced last year is that process was too quick. An associate advisor would come in, they'd be super hungry, they'd be driven, they'd be incredibly smart. And so like, wow, it's been 4 months, 5 months. Yeah, why don't you're good to go. Like you've passed all the stuff you need to pass. And objectively they'd done really well and they promoted into the lead advisor role, but it created, I don't want to call it perceived turnover because it's true turnover, like what Howard's talking about. It's not the advisor that's different, which is Brandon in this case, but it's the associate advisor that's supporting and kind of taking care of some of the back end stuff. So we actually did address that. We now have minimum time requirements for associate advisors in that role, because not only was it creating that experience we saw for clients, or hey, there's new team members, and it's not turnover in the sense that these new team members are gone from Root, but they started as an associate and moved up to a lead role. It created that sense, and it also created a sense for lead advisors of, that's someone new every 4 to 6 months. I love them, they're great, but that's some training requirements that would be better if we extended the duration of time associates were by default going to be in that role for to a minimum threshold. So yeah, that was a thing that we noticed, and we have made changes to that to create more of that consistency.
Any other questions that you see here, James, you want to address?
Let's see. Someone says, where did it go? Something about AI. Yes, will the AI adoption increase the number of clients served by a pod? Probably is the only thing I can say with that. If I had to guess, I think the AI increases the number of clients one advisor can effectively serve. The good news with that is I've got to believe you reinvest, you add more services with that, and ultimately long-term, it means fee compression, which I think is a very good thing. If we can ultimately use this to automate some of the back-end stuff that doesn't actually add value by a human doing it so that humans can do human things, I don't think will ever be replaced. Yeah, I do think that increases the number that one advisor could work with or one pod could work with without diminishing quality, real quality even, or perceived quality. And that leads to good results long-term, where the cost of running a business or running the services diminishes, which leads to a cost of services diminishing long-term. I have no idea what that time horizon is, but I do think that is only logical that is how things play out over time with that.
I do see a great question, James, if you don't mind addressing this one from Michael, who says, it's great to hear attrition is low. The relationships your advisors build with their clients is part of what makes Root so great. As you grow, how are you prioritizing the ongoing retention of these advisors? And as you think about that, Michael, congratulations on the new role with Apple. Katie had shared some details there.
Yeah, I think that one of the things just that I've been thinking about a lot over the last few months, like, what is my job? I knew what my job was when I started Root. I was the advisor, running the business, all that stuff. And now that things have changed at Root, I feel like every day I've been asking myself, like, what is the best thing I can do with my time? What is my job? How can I do this? And a big part of that, I just always keep coming back to the team, relationship with the team, support of the team. What does that look like? Because whenever we open a job, we get so many people applying. This, wow, this is going to be such a blow to your firm that you're leaving. Like, why are you leaving? And it's because the firm got too big, the firm got acquired, things got changed, and that firm lost a whole bunch of advisors. And now, thankfully, we're lucky. We get to bring on really incredible people, but how do we prevent Root from ever being that? How do we prevent that type of turnover? And I think that a big part of what it goes back to is the time horizon that we have and the thing that we're prioritizing. And by time horizon, a lot of more and more financial advisory firms are owned by private equity groups. These private equity groups have a relatively short time horizon. They're going to acquire the firm. They're going to cut costs. They're going to try to squeeze water out of a rock. They're going to try to sell this in 5 to 7 years. And this isn't to say all private equity firms are bad. There's a lot of good things that they can do when done right. But a lot of times, acquire firms, suck the culture out, suck all the things out that would retain strong advisors, and those advisors leave. So it's, Charlie Munger had the thing of, what are the, just set non-goals. What are the things you don't want to become? And then what are the things we can do to make sure that never happens? And so I think it's just, how do we do the opposite? How do we ensure that our time horizon is always 20 to 30, 50 years? What types of people would we want to grow with? How do we ensure that we have career paths? How do we ensure that we have the type of culture? How do we ensure that we have team investment that would retain those advisors? Because that's the best thing that we can do to serve clients, is make sure we're the best people on the team. And I truly, I believe we have some of the most incredible people in the industry on this team, and we're fortunate to get to work with them every day. And more, my job is, what can I do to make sure that everyone here wants to stay here forever, because we have something special going and the team is really special. But it's really just that, I think, prioritizing that over growth or quarterly or earnings for the company or anything else.
2 comments I'd like to highlight while you pick out another question to address, James. And these comments make it so that we truly love our job. This is why we do this. So the first one is from Dave. Congrats, guys. I've been watching your YouTube videos for a few years. I've always liked your style and information you provide. I'm glad to see you've lowered your minimums to 1 million, but are clearly trying to maintain your high level of services. Hope to become a client very soon. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Dave. And this comes from Cecilia, who says, thank you for this webinar. Even though I've followed Roots videos for years, I've learned so much about you through this webinar. Your service and growth philosophy really resonates with me, and I'm so glad to see that there's a financial planning firm like yours around. I recently applied for the client service coordinator position at Root and would love the opportunity to learn more about that position. And that is something that is really fun to read, because a lot of the team members with us right now, I remember them being on our master plan last year saying, hey, it would be cool to work at Root one day as an advisor in client service. And now they're on the team. So fun to see this.
Yeah. Thank you both for those questions, or those comments, I should say.
Any questions that are piquing your interest, James?
Yeah, Rob Wagner says, how many registered advisors are actually working with clients? I would anticipate more. We have, going back to the pods and squads structures, a lot of the associate, they're registered. A lot of our associate advisors, the majority of them have their CFP, they are registered. So it's not the registered advisors I necessarily look at, it's how many lead and senior advisors do we have, because those are the people that are actively working with clients. And I think we're right at 20 with that. So 20 there, and yes, the goal 20 is great. That's amazing. I keep going back to, over the last 2 years, we've had 60,000 plus people reach out and at least start the process of saying, what is it like to work with an advisor at Root? So still a bit of an imbalance there.
Beautiful. Lots of comments coming in regarding tax planning and our ability to be able to do tax filing as well, which we addressed earlier in this webinar. And then this question I would like to address for you, Sophia, who says, you 2 gentlemen and staff shown on your website are relatively young. Is there a track record of your past experience in advising planning? Apology for my blunt question. Thank you.
Yeah, read that one more time.
Yeah, it's you two gentlemen and staff shown on your website are relatively young. Is there a track record of your past experience in advising retirement planning? It sounds like it's directed specifically in terms of if I'm working with Root, how much experience do the advisors have?
Oh, yes, I see. Yeah. We have advisors that range in experience from a few years to a couple of decades, and experience matters for sure. There are other things that we kind of look at, kind of the four pillars, as I like to think about, that we want to make sure all of our advisors are strong at. One is the technical planning piece. That's the nuts and bolts of all the CFP curriculum. Do you understand insurance and retirement planning? Do you understand investments? Do you understand taxes? All those, we need to have mastery of all those skills. There's investments, and that's technically part of the technical aspect, but I view that differently. Do you have a really, really strong understanding of how capital markets work, why we design portfolios the way that we do, how to apply that to unique situations? That's number two. The third is the financial psychology piece, which is just, I know plenty of advisors. I think, Ari, you probably know plenty of advisors who are really sharp, but there's no relationship. There's not the ability to communicate. There's not kind of that ability to ask the right questions, or to go deeper, or to actually take the conversation where it needs to go a lot of the times. There's also the kind of self-leadership component of how well can you time manage? How well can you project manage? How well can you get along with teammates? How do you do it? These things that you don't think about as being a strong advisor, but really, really matter. And so we really more look at, yes, experience, but those four domains, and we have ways of training on them and ways of saying, how do we ensure minimum quality standards on those? And that's more the approach that we take of, once you do that, whether you have 5 years of experience, 10 years of experience, 20 years of experience, I know a lot of advisors with 20 years of experience, but I wouldn't want them at Root. They've been doing the same thing for 20 years over and over and over. They're not necessarily a great advisor, versus someone who for 5 years has constantly been learning and growing and developing and learning new things, a variety of experiences. That's the type of person that I would prefer to have, given the option between those two. Not that they're mutually exclusive, but yeah, we are a younger team on average, but there are standards that we look at for someone to become an advisor, less so a time requirement.
Beautiful. There is a comment I'd like to highlight, and then I see a question that looks like a great question that could be one we end on if you choose to, James. This says, I'll read the comment first while the question is right above it from Alexander. So the comment comes from Michael. Comment only. Thank you both for being so transparent about your company's growth plans and operations. Sessions like this and your podcast give us as clients even more confidence that we made the right choice to partner together, and it even creates a personal connection with all of you. So thank you for that, Michael. And the question comes from Alexander. Hey, James, as you continue to grow Root rapidly, how do you ensure that your team continues to deliver the high quality personal service and keep their clients engaged?
Yeah. Hey, Alexander. Nice. Thanks for coming. This is what I probably obsess about the most and think about the most, and frankly, like, worry about the most. Not worry in the sense of, oh, things, but like just that. If that started to happen, I would rather not ever grow again than say, oh, we're going to grow, but it means service is going to be deteriorated by 30% or 40%. That's just not something I think any of us would be proud to be part of if that was the thing that happened. So there are some objective things. Some clients don't always love this, but we, like, after every single meeting, when someone onboards as a client, we have a little survey that just goes out. How was that? How did we do? How was that experience? And not everyone answers it, and we don't require that they answer it, of course, but it's just, we want to keep a very tight pulse on how are things going? Where are the opportunities where meetings maybe aren't going as well as they could be? Twice a year, we send out NPS surveys to clients just to get a sense of, how are we doing? Please share your feedback. My inbox is very open to clients. Your inbox is very open to clients. I still talk to people. If there's a concern, if there's anything, I mean, this is an open invitation. Email me directly, james@rootfinancial.com. Like, those are the things that I'm really obsessed about. And our growth has not been perfect. I don't think there's any way to go from 7 people 2 years ago to 55 people today and say, whoa, we didn't make a single mistake. We didn't drop the ball once. We didn't do anything that in retrospect we would have done different. That there have been. Now, thankfully, when I look at the things that were done right and the things I think we would do differently or do to them again, overwhelmingly more positive in my biased opinion than negative, but there's always things I feel like we're learning from. And I think that the biggest thing to me, especially as Root continues to grow, is how do we ensure we're attracting the type of people that are never satisfied, from the sense that they're never satisfied that we're good enough. And we want to attract the type of people that are always wanting to get better, whether you're an advisor, operations, client service, a leadership role. There are objective things that we can look at, but the biggest thing is there a company-wide obsession with saying, what can we do to get better? And I think it's finding those people. If you grow with the right people, a lot of these problems take care of themselves, but it's the desire to always be in tune with that as much as we possibly can be to alleviate any potential negative stuff.
Great. Any other questions you want to go through, James?
I haven't seen all of them, but I know we're at time. If you're a client on this and you didn't get your question answered, feel free to email it to me directly, your advisor, whoever you want, your advisor directly, me directly. We do want to make sure all of that gets answered. Of course, we didn't quite have time today, but thank you for everyone that attended and is on. It's fun to know there's obviously a vested interest in the way we do things, because it's a giant responsibility when you are a financial advisor, when people are trusting you with their, not just money, but their futures, their ability to do things the things that they want. So I really appreciate all these questions, and even the things of, hey, if this is what I'm noticing, these are the things that we want to hear, so we know what we can continuously do better on.
Great. Thank you all for joining. This was once again recorded. So if you were not able to make it at the beginning, you can certainly watch it back. And that will be it for today. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.